So I don't see anything on my screen, but you can see that it's recorded. Oh, okay, yeah, I see a little red dot. So are you recording at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. I'm on the Voter Services Committee, and our focus is helping people get registered to vote and providing information about the voting process and ways that people can participate in addition to voting. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Primarily voter registration and the voting process, particularly how it's been affected by the pandemic. And then I'll have a little bit more information on other things that people can do to make sure they get the most out of their voting experience. So first step in participating in democracy is registering to vote. And in Illinois, there are 3 ways to register to vote. You can register online, you can register by mail, and you can register in person. A lot of the Voter Services Committee voter registration is in-person events. We're still doing those, and other groups are also registering voters. But because of the pandemic, our efforts have been cut back quite a bit. So I am going to focus a lot on online voter registration because it's something that can easily be done if you have access to the internet. For online voter registration, you want to go to the Illinois voter registration website. That's a state website. This is the actual link. And notice a lot of fine print. First thing, online voter registration closes 15 days before an election. So for this particular election, that means that you can register to vote online up until midnight on October 18th. So still have time, still have about a month in which you can register to vote online, but there is a deadline for that. To vote in Illinois, there are certain requirements. You have to be a United States citizen, have to be 18 years or older before the date of on or before the date of the general election. You have to live in your election precinct at least 30 days prior to election day. And one thing, you may not claim the right to vote anywhere else. What does that mean? Well, I only live in one location, but many people spend part of the year in one location and part of the year in another location. So college student may be on campus for 9 months and living with, at home with their parents for the rest of the time. You can actually register to vote in one of those locations, but you can't register to vote in both. Really, where you want to register depends on what candidates you're most familiar with. Because even though this is a national election, in this election there are going to be local and state candidates as well. So the more you know about the candidates, the more comfortable you're going to be. So whichever location you feel that you're more familiar with is the one that you want to register to vote in. Now you can check to see, there's a voter registration lookup. You can check to see whether you're already registered to vote. But if you're not, you can register to vote online and you will click on this link. When you do, you'll see this screen. It will ask whether you have a valid Illinois driver's license or state ID. I do, so I'm going to say yes. And why is this important? Because in order to register online, you have to have certain information This information is going to be on your driver's license or Illinois state ID. Obviously, the Illinois driver's license or state ID number, not something most people have memorized, but it's on the driver's license. The date the license or ID was issued. That's not something I remember since I got my license years ago, but I don't have to worry about it. It's actually on my driver's license. The last 4 digits of my social security number and the birth date. Obviously, the birth date is going to be important because that will determine whether you're eligible to vote. Now, question is, why are you asked for this information? The reason that the driver's license information is important is because the Illinois Secretary of State has a database with information from the DMV, and that includes your signature. And so the information in the Illinois database is going to be sent to the local election authority. And one of the things that's going to be sent is a copy of your signature. So all your name, address, identifying information, birth date, but in addition, your signature is going to be transmitted. The database for voter registration is separate from the Secretary of State database. So it is more secure, but information from the Illinois Secretary of State is going to be transferred, and that's important because if you're registering to vote online, you're not going to be able to sign anything the way that you could if you were registering to vote using a mail-in application or registering to vote in person. There's a whole other set of screens. We're not going to go through them, but basically you're going to be asked to verify your citizenship, your age, your name, address, etc. So if you have your driver's license, you're going to be able to put your information into the system, and it's going to be matched to the Secretary of State database. Keep in mind that you can't register to vote online during the 15 days before an election. However, you can still register to vote. So if you miss that October 18th deadline, you want to register to vote, you want to vote, you can still register to vote because Illinois has what's called grace period voting. And I'll talk a little bit more about that after I talk about the other ways in which you can register to vote. You can register to vote by mail. You can either go to the Illinois State Board Elections website or the Peoria County Election Commission website. Their website is excellent. It's really well designed, got a lot of good information, and this is the link that you use. You can download the form, print it out, complete it, and mail it to your local election authority, which if you live in Peoria County, that's the Peoria County Election Commission, and their address. This is what that form looks like. So if you're registering to vote by mail, you have a place for your address. You're going to be mailing it to the Peoria County Election Commission. In the upper left-hand corner are your instructions. The lower left-hand corner is basically the form that you fill out if you are completing an in-person registration with a deputy registrar. So you want to follow the instructions here, and notice there is a space for your signature. You're going to be asked to provide your Illinois driver's license, state ID number, and the last 4 digits of your social security number. If you can't provide that information, you can still send in the form, but it's going to add a step when you vote. Once your registration form is received and processed, and this is true whether you're registering online, registering to vote in person, or registering by mail, you're going to receive a voter identification card. It's a yellow postcard, and it has information on your polling place, the districts that you're in, so what the state and local districts you'd be voting in, and it's very useful. However, it's not needed to vote. It's really for your information. It's a yellow card because in Peoria County, at least, election mail gets colored, and it's colored so that the post office workers can spot it right away and know this is election mail. If you register by mail, though, and you don't supply the last 4 digits of your social security number or your driver's license, state ID number, your registration is still going to get through, you're still going to go on the poll book, but when you come in to vote, you're going to need to provide 2 forms of ID to the election judges. And one of the IDs that you provide has to have your name and current residential address. So remember, if you register by mail and supply the last 4 digits of your social security number and your driver's license or state ID number, don't have to worry about it. If you don't have that information, you can still send in the form, but you have to bring some ID with you. You can also register to vote in person. Here, some league members are working with people at the farmers market, a riverfront farmers market on Saturdays. So there still is some in-person voter registration. Pretty easy to do. You have to provide 2 forms of identification, and you don't have to provide, sorry about that, you don't have to provide a photo ID, but one of the IDs you provide has to include your current name and your residence address. So something like a utility bill would be fine. It has your name, it has your address, it doesn't have a photo, but that's not needed. Where can you register in person? You can always go to the Peoria County Board of Election Commissioners office. And in addition, you can register to vote at the Peoria County Courthouse, the city clerk's office at City Hall, anytime they're open, any Peoria Public Library, and in fact, in Peoria County, there are a number of libraries besides the Peoria Public Library, the Chillicothe Library, Dunlap Library, Alpha Park Library. You can check with your local library and see if they can register you to vote. And as I mentioned, the League of Women Voters does have a voter registration table at the farmers market on Saturdays in September. So there'll be 2 more Saturdays from 8 a.m. to noon where you could register to vote in person. There are other local groups that are registering people. National Voter Registration Day is September 22nd, and I believe there are some events planned for that date. I don't have any more information at this time, but it's something that you might want to check the local paper or local news to find out more about those events. There are deadlines for registration. For in-person registration, the last day to do that is October 6th. And that is earlier. If you want to register online, you can register up until October 18th. If you miss those deadlines, you still can register to vote. But obviously, the sooner you do it, the better. But if for some reason you can't make those deadlines, there is grace period registration. During the grace period, you can register to vote at the Election Commission office, at any early voting site, or even on election day. You can tool in to your polling place on election day and register to vote and vote at the same time. Keep in mind, you're going to have to provide the ID for registration, but you can register to vote. The thing that makes grace period registration different from earlier voter registration is that if you do use register to vote during the grace period, you have to vote at the time that you register. So if you go to the Election Commission office after October 18th and you want to register to vote, you're going to register to vote and you're going to need to vote at the same time. Same for if you go to any of the early voting locations. You can register to vote there, but you will have to vote at the same time that you register. Voter registration records. I was reading some newspaper articles about people being concerned that their voter registration records were hacked into. Those states were not Illinois. In some states, voter registration records are public records. In Illinois, that's not the case. So voter registration records are not public records. They are not in the cloud or on the internet. It's a separate system for voter registration information. And if you go to the Election Commission office, you can look and see your voter registration record. And obviously the staff will be able to see your voter registration record, but you can't see anybody else's record. There are a few exceptions to this. There are certain state agencies and I believe registered political parties have access to names of people who voted in the primaries, took a Republican ticket or a Democratic ticket. They get information on voters, but ordinary businesses, ordinary individuals are not going to be able to see voter registration records. So we've kind of gone over the different ways to register to vote. You can register in person, you can register online, you can register by mail. Thing is, even if you miss the deadlines for online or in-person registration, you can take advantage of grace period registration. And you're doing all that, of course, because you want to vote. In Illinois, there have been some changes to voting due to the pandemic. One thing to keep in mind that these changes are only limited to the 2020 general election. So once January rolls around and it's 2021, those changes go away. For the 2020 election, anyone who voted in 2018, 2019, or 2020 has automatically been mailed an application for a vote by mail ballot. Now, it's an application, it's not the ballot itself. And if you're mailed an application, does that mean that you have to apply for a vote by mail ballot? No. If you don't want to vote by mail, just don't return the application. It won't be a problem for the Election Commission. And you don't need to vote by mail if you don't want to. If you want to vote in person, that's still an option. There's still going to be early voting, and we're still going to have voting at the polls on Election Day. Another change that was made for this year is that Election Day, November 3rd, is a state holiday. That's not always going to be the case, as that change goes away in 2021. But this November 3rd is going to be a state holiday, which means schools are going to be closed, courthouses are going to be closed, and because the schools are closed, the Election Commission is hoping that students will apply to serve as election judges. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But one of the changes, Election Day is a state holiday. There are extended early voting hours at permanent early voting sites. And in Peoria County, that's the Election Commission office. So ordinarily they're open 9 to 5 on weekdays, but for early voting hours, once early voting starts, they'll be open 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekends and holidays. So you're going to have that option. There are other early voting sites, but the extended hours are at the Election Commission office. Vote by mail begins September 24th, 2020. Applications for mail-in ballot have already gone out. You can still apply to vote by mail if you didn't get an application, but the ballots are going to be ready to go out within about a week. So vote by mail begins September 24th. Early voting at the Election Commission office, early voting begins on September 24th. So you can vote early as soon as September 24th. The ballots are going to, vote by mail ballots are going to go out to people who've requested them on September 24th as well. For other early voting locations, early voting will start October 19th. So notice that's the day after online registration closes. So we've got a lot of early opportunities to vote. And then election day itself is Tuesday, November 3rd. If you want to vote on election day, the polls are going to be open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. To find the location of your polling place, you can check your voter registration card, or you can go to the Election Commission website and they have the information as well. One thing, if you register to vote online, you may not have, if you do it, say, October 15th, you may not get your voter registration card before election day, but you can still get the information you need by going to the Peoria County Election Commission website. You can also call the office, but it's easier on the staff if you can go to the website. For early voting, you can vote in person before election day. But one thing to keep in mind is the votes are cast early, they're processed, but they're not tabulated or counted until after the polls close. So what that means essentially is that there are no early voting results. You have the Election Commission office does not know what the tally is because they don't count the votes. They process them so that they're in the system, but they're not counted until after the polls close. And the same is true for mail-in ballots. If you get your mail-in ballot early, so you get it, say, after September 24th, you know who you want to vote for, you complete your ballot, mail it back in, it's going to be processed. So signatures are going to be verified, all the security issues are going to be dealt with, and then the vote itself, though, is not going to be counted until after the polls close on election day. But the earlier you get your votes in, the processing itself takes time. And so if the Election Commission office can do that before election day, the extent to which they can process votes, that will just make everything go more smoothly and quickly on election day. For early voting locations, there are quite a few. Many of them are libraries. They're available. The information is on the Peoria County Election Commission website. One thing to keep in mind for early voting, you can go, if you live in Peoria County, you can go to any early voting location. So whichever location is the most, location and time is the most convenient for you, you can go to that location. On election day, you have to go to your specific polling place. So early voting, you've got a little bit more leeway. It's a little more user-friendly. You can go to any of the early voting sites, whichever one is most convenient. For November 3rd, however, you have to go to your polling place. What you need, not much. You don't need to provide a reason or excuse. You really only need to show up. You need to live in Peoria County. You don't have to present a government issued or photo ID to vote. Basically, your signature is going to serve as verification. Now, remember, if you registered to vote by mail, you didn't supply your last four digits of your social security number, your driver's license number, or your state ID number, then you will need to bring some ID. But doesn't need to be government issued or photo ID. It just needs to have your name and current residence address. So we've covered voting in person. You can vote in person on election day. You can vote in person at early voting locations, and you can vote by mail. This pink card is the application for a vote by mail ballot that was sent out by the Peoria County Election Commission. Remember I said they send out colored mail because that way the post office can easily spot it and know this is election mail. It needs to be treated appropriately. So this application was sent to me. I whited out my name and address, but notice there was a tracking barcode. So they keep track of the applications they send out and the applications that they get back in. So if I got this application and I didn't want to vote by mail, I don't have to do anything. All I need to do is show up at my polling place on election day or go to an early voting location. I have voted by mail in the last several elections, so I was very happy to get the application. This, again, remember, was automatically sent to me. That is not going to happen after 2020. But because I voted in 2018, I got an application for a vote by mail ballot. I need to sign and provide a phone number. Email address they'd like to have as well. Now, the reason that they're asking for that information, ordinarily I don't give out that sort of information to people, but the Election Commission is not going to be selling my name and address to telemarketers. Remember, voter registration records are not public. The reason that they want that information is that if there's a problem with my application or with my ballot, they have a way to get in touch with me quickly. Now they have my address, so they will always try to get in touch with me by mail, but they can get in touch with me by phone. That would be a lot quicker than waiting for the mail. And there's an option if I were going to be, if I'm a resident of Peoria County and I want to vote in the Peoria County elections, but I wasn't going to be in town, I could provide a mailing address and they would send my ballot to that mailing address. Now, if you're a first-time voter, obviously you won't have voted in 2018, 2019, or 2020, so you're not going to automatically get an application to vote by mail. If you still want to vote by mail, however, no problem. You can you can request an application. The easiest way to do that is to go online. There's an online request form, and actually filling out that request form is your application. You don't have to wait for the office to send you something to sign. You're applying for a mail-in ballot online. They'll have a note of that, and when the ballots are ready, they'll send you your mail-in ballot. For college students, if you're going away to school, you can have your mail-in ballot sent to your school address. Remember, for absentee ballots, one of the reasons is you're actually not going to be at home on election day, but you still want to vote. And here, I'm going to let the Election Commission video do the talking about the vote by mail process.
Did you know that voting at home is open to all voters in Peoria County? It is safe, accurate, convenient, and easy. To request your ballot, visit www.peoriaelections.org and complete the online application. The application process begins 90 days prior to the election and ends 5 days before. Once the election office receives and processes your application, a vote by mail packet will be sent to you starting 40 days before the election. Inside the packet, you will find your ballot, secrecy envelope, and a purple return envelope. Be sure to read all instructions located on the back of the packet. To vote your ballot, Use a blue or black ink pen and fill in the box next to your choice. Be sure to only select the number of choices available for each race. If you don't want to vote for a race, skip it. The races you do choose to vote will still be counted. If for some reason you spoil your ballot, you can either call the election office to have a replacement ballot mailed to you, or take your spoiled ballot to your polling place on election day and cast your vote in person. Once you have completed voting your ballot, fold and seal inside the secrecy envelope. Place the secrecy envelope inside the purple envelope and sign the affidavit located on the back. No postage necessary. Just drop in the nearest mailbox for return to the election office.
Oops. I'm stopping it here because I want you to notice, in addition to your signature is absolutely critical. If you don't sign it, then it can't count. It's going to identify you as the voter in question. But you'll also see there's a location for a date, phone number, and email. I strongly urge you to fill out, if you're voting by mail, fill out that information. Because if there is any problem with your ballot, then they will have the date that you completed your ballot, and they'll have additional ways to get in touch with you besides the mail. They will definitely get in touch with you by mail, but they can also call or email you to try to resolve any issues that come up. One thing to keep in mind is that when ballots are not rejected in the sense of being tossed when there's a problem. In Illinois, the election office is required to try to get in touch with the voter to make up any deficiencies. So if there's a problem, you want to make sure that the election commission can get in touch with you as soon as possible. That's another reason to send in your ballot as soon as you know who you want to vote for, because the earlier you get it in, the earlier any problems can be resolved, and everybody just makes it easier for everybody.
Ballots must be posted no later than election day to be counted. All returned vote-by-mail ballots are verified by a bipartisan team of election judges before being counted. Take advantage of our vote-by-mail program. It is safe, accurate, convenient, and easy.
And one of the other changes for this election due to the pandemic is the use of drop boxes for mail-in ballots. So in addition to using the mail, you can, if you don't want to send your mail-in ballot through the mail, the option, you have an additional option of using a ballot drop box. The large drop box has been located outside the Election Commission office. It will have a video camera on it 24 hours. There are other security procedures that have been put in place. I'm not going to go into them all, but there's electronic locks. It's another secure way to make sure that your ballot gets into the Election Commission. Now, this is the large drop box, which is going to be outside the Election Commission office. In addition to that drop box, there are also smaller drop boxes, and those will be located at early voting sites. So one option is to, if you've got your mail-in ballot ready to go, you can go to any early voting location. There will be a drop box where you can drop off your mail-in ballot. As far as security goes, the studies that have been done have not found that mail-in voting benefits one political party over another, and there's no evidence that mail-in voting is subject to a lot of fraud. It is actually a very secure way, and there are procedures in place to make sure that person who is eligible to vote, voting by mail, their vote will count, and the number of ways that that's done. First is the bipartisan election judges who check signatures and monitor for fraud. Bipartisan means that one person from each party, each political party, the two parties that got the most votes in the previous election can serve as election judges, and they monitor for election fraud. See if we
Did
can
you
get
know
this.
that every mail ballot is verified through signature matching? Did you know it is your signature that makes your vote count? Your signature is verified by a bipartisan team of trained election judges. If an issue with your signature is identified, then the election judges review additional signature images from your voting record. If your signature still doesn't pass the verification process, then you will get a letter in the mail giving you up to 14 days after the election to resolve the issue and make sure your vote is counted. The signature verification process happens without your ballot envelope ever being opened to ensure your vote remains anonymous. Now, don't forget to sign the back of your ballot envelope. Remember, it's your signature that makes your vote count.
In addition to the secure ballot drop boxes, it's also prepaid postage. And remember, there's a purple envelope, color-coded mail so that that postal workers know this is election mail. They do know that even though the postage is prepaid, they need to postmark those envelopes because the law in Illinois says that if it's got a postmark on or before election day, it counts. It's a valid ballot. Now, in Peoria County, for this coming election, you're going to be able to track your ballot online. So you can go to the Peoria County Election Commission website and sign up to track your ballot. You will be able to find out if your mail-in ballot has been sent out to you. And when you send it back to the Election Commission office, you can use the ballot tracking to find out whether your ballot has been received. So you have this nice option of keeping track of where your ballot is in the system. And that's available on the Peoria County Election Commission website. There are a number of impacts of the pandemic on the election. It's made in-person voter registration more problematic, although in-person voter registration is still going on. On election day, it may mean longer wait times. And that's because, remember, people need to socially distance themselves. They need to wear masks. They need the election equipment has to be cleaned. So that may lead to a longer process when you get to the polls. You might have to wait longer because of these safety precautions. To reduce those risks, to make things go a little more quickly, people may want to vote early or by mail. And so those options have been strengthened for this election. Now keep in mind that if you are voting by mail, your signatures have to be verified by election judges. So human eyes are on the ballot. And that process, although they go quickly, they actually go a little bit more quickly than they show you in the video because they've had training in matching signatures, but it still does take time. And again, remember, in Illinois, if the ballot is postmarked on or before election day, even if it's received after election day, it's still valid. So those, you might have a ballot that was mailed in November 1st, might not get to the Election Commission office until November 4th. It's got the postmark. It's been dated, so it's a valid ballot and it has to be counted. So because of the pandemic, if it increases mail-in voting, it may increase the time that it takes to count the ballots. As a result, it might not be possible to project the winners of races on election night, but it's always been a projection. So 99% of the vote is in, you project that the winner is going to be so-and-so, but it's a projection because the official results have never been on election night. You have to have time to process absentee ballots and ballots that are postmarked on or before election day, but come in after election day. And so the law has always been that election results in Illinois are not official until 14 days after the election. If the mail-in ballots come in right away and they're processed and they're tabulated on after the polls close on election day, then that'll be quicker. But by law, results aren't official. Remember, if there's a problem with a ballot, the election commission has to get in touch with you within 14 days. And that 14 days is the period for results to become official. So it's not really a problem. Naturally, people want to know, but I'd like to know. You get impatient, but it's perfectly legitimate for election results to take time. And the official results will never be until 14 days after the election in any case. Now, if you want to vote, but there's some problem, you can always vote a provisional ballot. Now, why might your eligibility to vote be questioned? Well, remember I said if you mail in your voter registration, but you didn't provide your social security number, last 4 digits, or your state ID number or your driver's license number, then you're going to have to provide ID on election day. Let's say you forget your ID on election day. So you didn't have it at the time when you sent in your registration. You go to the polls and it's like, oh, I forgot it. You can still vote. You'll vote a provisional ballot, and that ballot will be processed and counted if you're found eligible to vote. So of course, you didn't bring your ID, well, bring it back to the election commission sometime afterwards within that 14-day period, and you're good to go. So there are a number of reasons why voter eligibility might be questioned. That's one of the most common ones is, you need an ID and you don't have it with you. But in any case, you can vote a provisional ballot, and that will be counted if you're eligible to vote. Now, that covers voter registration and voting, but of course, one of the things that I've learned is that there are a lot of people working behind the scenes to make that process of voting work. I did not realize how much effort goes into an election. There are people who work at the election commission office, but there are also a lot of volunteers. And one of the important ways to volunteer is to serve as an election judge.
Across this great community, men and women from every background and occupation are coming together to help the citizens of Peoria County. They are election judges. They assist voters on election day by distributing ballots, answering questions, and opening and closing the polls. They do it not for the $155 paycheck, but to help others and to give back to this great community. Become a part of this elite team. Become a part of history. Become an election judge.
I have one correction to that. The video says $155, but you actually get $165. So they've given people a raise. You earn every penny because it is a very long day. Remember, the polls open at 6 a.m. and people who are working the polls have to be there beforehand to set everything up. So it's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth participating. There are other ways if you want to volunteer, but you can't serve as an election judge. I'm an independent voter, and election judges need to have declared a party. So I couldn't serve as an election judge, but I can certainly volunteer to serve in other capacities. There are other things that need to be done. And the volunteers are really what make elections work. So we really hope that students, new voters, old voters, with student, the Election Commission office really likes to have high school or college students serve as election judges. They like it because they're tech savvy, they're used to classroom experiences, so they pick up the training really quickly. Any high school or college students out there, they definitely want you to apply to serve as an election judge. Now, of course, one of the things you have to do is decide who to vote for. I can't tell you that, but one of the ways in which you can get candidate information is by going to the Illinois Voter Guide. Now, the Voter Guide is a project of the League of Women Voters. What the Peoria League of Women Voters did for our local candidates is we drew up a questionnaire. It was a bipartisan effort for questions to be asked to all of the candidates. We sent these questions out to the candidates. When we get back information, we put it on our website. And if you go to this link, you want to click on find out what is on your ballot. Now, we sent the questions out to candidates, but they don't have to respond to the questions. Still, the questions themselves might give you a good idea of what to think about when you're choosing a candidate, what their priorities are, what they feel is important about the office, information that can be useful. The League also has candidate forums, and to get information on those, there's going to be one, I believe, tomorrow evening. You want to go to the Greater Peoria League of Women Voters Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, just search for Peoria League of Women Voters. That'll take you to the League of Women Voters Facebook page. The events are live streamed there, and it has information on the different candidate forums. Other groups also do candidate forums, so local news may steer you to those events, but you do want to be informed about the candidates so that you can make good decisions. And a lot of the information that I provided is also provided on the Peoria County Election Commission website, peoriaelections.org. So that's a good place to go for information. You can apply for a mail-in ballot online. You can track your mail-in ballot. Lots of good things, lots of good information on that website. So at this point, I think I'm going to hand it back over to Roberta. If she's there.